Stop. Everything stops right now. The gavel falls. Papers fly. Court officers freeze mid-step. Every eye in Providence Municipal Court turns to Judge Frank Caprio, whose face has gone pale as chalk. His hands tremble as they hover over the bench, staring at the man before him. Sir. Sir, what is your name? Michael Rodriguez, Your Honor. And you served in the Marines, correct? 3 tours in Afghanistan? The judge's voice cracks. Remove those handcuffs. Remove them, now. What unfolded next in that courtroom would be watched by over 50 million people worldwide and change how America sees its veterans forever. This is the story of the day Judge Caprio halted court to honor a hero everyone else had forgotten. The morning of October 15, 2023, began like any other at Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio, 77 years old, had presided over traffic violations and minor offenses for more than 30 years. His courtroom had become famous worldwide through the television show Caught in Providence, where his compassionate approach to justice earned him the nickname America's Kindest Judge. But what the cameras didn't capture that Tuesday morning would become the most emotional moment in the court's history. Michael Rodriguez, 34, was brought in wearing handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit. On paper, he was just another case, driving on a suspended license, failure to appear for a prior court date, and sleeping in his car in a public parking lot. The bailiff read his charges in the same monotone cadence used for hundreds of similar cases. But something about this man was different. Judge Caprio, known for reading stories in people's faces, noticed Rodriguez's posture, shoulders back, eyes forward, hands clasped behind him even while restrained. It was a military bearing that civilian life hadn't erased. Mr. Rodriguez, the judge began, it says here you were found sleeping in your vehicle. Can you explain your circumstances? Rodriguez straightened further. Your Honor, I've been having trouble finding stable housing. I work when I can get construction jobs, but it's been difficult. Yet Judge Caprio saw what the paperwork could not capture, something deeper, something that would change everything. The judge leaned forward, eyes fixed, heart opening, ready to honor a story of service and sacrifice. Judge Caprio studied the man's face more closely. There was something familiar in those eyes. A look he had seen before in his father's generation. In the faces of men who had witnessed things most people couldn't imagine. Son, have you served in the military? Yes, Your Honor. United States Marine Corps, 2007 to 2015. The courtroom grew silent. Judge Caprio's expression shifted. His usual gentle demeanor deepened into something more intense, more solemn. How many deployments? 3, sir. Afghanistan, Helmand Province. Then Judge Caprio did something that stunned everyone present. He stood from his bench and walked to the front, closing the distance between himself and Rodriguez. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. What was your unit, Marine? 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, Your Honor. Judge Caprio's face paled. His hands trembled visibly. The courtroom was deathly silent, as if every person sensed something extraordinary was unfolding. 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, the judge repeated slowly. Helmand Province, 2010 to 2011. Rodriguez looked puzzled but nodded. Yes, Your Honor. How did you? Judge Caprio turned, addressing the entire courtroom. His voice carried across the room with uncommon intensity. Ladies and gentlemen, what Mr. Rodriguez doesn't know is that my nephew, Anthony Caprio, served in the same unit, in the same province, at the same time. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, but the judge wasn't finished. Anthony came home and told me about a Marine who saved his life during an IED attack outside Margar. A Marine who carried 3 wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. A Marine whose actions earned him a Bronze Star with Vite Device for Valor. But what Judge Caprio said next stunned everyone, including Rodriguez himself. Rodriguez's eyes widened as the judge continued. Anthony described this Marine to me many times. Hispanic, about 5 feet 8 inches, scar on his left hand from the same explosion that wounded my nephew. He said, this Marine never talked about what he did. Never bragged. never sought recognition. Anthony said, "This man saved his life and then acted like it was just another day." Judge Caprio stepped closer to Rodriguez, his voice thick with emotion. "Mr. Rodriguez, do you remember Lance Corporal Anthony Caprio?" Rodriguez's composure finally shattered. Tony Caprio from Providence. He made it home. He made it home because of you." The courtroom fell completely silent. Court officers, lawyers, defendants awaiting their cases, everyone stood frozen, witnessing something unprecedented. Judge Caprio turned to the bailiff. "Remove those handcuffs immediately. This Marine will not stand in my courtroom in restraints." As the handcuffs clicked open, Rodriguez wiped tears from his eyes. "Your Honor. Tony never told me you were his uncle. Is he okay?" "He's more than okay, Marine. He's alive. He's married. He has 2 beautiful children, and he talks about you every Veterans Day. He's been searching for you for years." The emotion in the courtroom was tangible. Several spectators were openly crying. Even the typically stoic court officers showed visible emotion. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to follow how this extraordinary story unfolds. What happens next will restore your faith in humanity. But Judge Caprio wasn't finished. He had recognized more than a veteran. He had recognized a hero who had slipped through the cracks of a system that should have protected him. "Mr. Rodriguez, tell me about your situation. What happened after you came home?" Rodriguez hesitated, clearly uneasy discussing personal matters in open court. "Your Honor, it's been difficult. The transition was harder than I expected. I've struggled with PTSD, had trouble finding steady work. I lost my apartment 3 months ago." Judge Caprio nodded slowly, his expression growing more resolute with each word. "And yet, you chose to sleep in your car rather than harm or inconvenience others. You parked legally, bothered no one, simply trying to survive with dignity." The judge returned toward his bench, but he did not sit. Instead, he remained standing, addressing the entire courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing today. This is a perfect example of how our system sometimes fails those who have served it most faithfully. This Marine," he pointed at Rodriguez, "earned a Bronze Star for saving American lives under enemy fire. He carried wounded soldiers to safety while bullets rained down. And yet, we find him sleeping in his car because he cannot afford housing." The courtroom remained utterly silent, hanging on every word. This is not justice. This is not how we honor our heroes. Then Judge Caprio did something that had never happened in his courtroom before. He walked to his chambers and returned with his personal checkbook. "Mr. Rodriguez, I am dismissing all charges against you. Furthermore, I am personally ensuring you have housing tonight and every night until we can connect you with the support you deserve." Rodriguez looked stunned. "Your Honor, I cannot accept." "You are not accepting charity, Marine. You are accepting help from a grateful American whose family member is alive because of your actions." But what Judge Caprio did next shocked everyone even more than his personal generosity. He picked up his phone and made a call right there in open court. "Tony, it's Uncle Frank. You need to get down to the courthouse right now. I found him. I found the Marine who saved your life." The courtroom erupted. People were crying, applauding, shouting in support. Rodriguez stood at attention, tears streaming down his face, realizing that after years of struggling alone, help had finally found him in the most unexpected place. Judge Caprio addressed the courtroom one more time. "This is why we serve. This is why we show compassion. Because you never know when the person standing before you might be the hero who saved your family member's life." But the story did not end there. Within an hour, Anthony Caprio burst through the courtroom doors. The reunion between the 2 Marines was something witnesses said they would never forget. "Rodriguez, I've been looking for you everywhere," Anthony shouted, running toward his former comrade. The 2 Marines embraced in the middle of the courtroom while everyone watched, many openly weeping at the emotional reunion. Anthony turned to his uncle. Uncle Frank, this man didn't just save my life. He saved Peterson and Williams too. He carried all three of us out of that kill zone. He's the reason I am here, able to watch my kids grow up. Rodriguez, overwhelmed by the attention, tried to downplay his actions. I just did what any Marine would do. You guys would have done the same for me. Anthony shook his head. No, man. What you did was beyond the call of duty. And you never said a word about it. You never asked for recognition, never bragged, never even told us your full name. We just knew you as Rodriguez. Judge Caprio listened to this exchange with growing emotion and determination. Mr. Rodriguez, I am not just dismissing your charges. I am personally going to ensure that every service organization in Rhode Island knows what you have done and what support you need. You will not spend another night without proper housing. And we are going to get you connected with the VA services you have earned. Make sure to comment below about how this story makes you feel, and subscribe to see more incredible moments of justice and compassion. What happens in the final moments will amaze you, but the most emotional moment was still to come. Judge Caprio asked Rodriguez to remain after court ended. When the courtroom had cleared, leaving only the two Marines and court staff, the judge made an announcement that surprised everyone. Mr. Rodriguez, I have made some calls during our recess. The American Legion Post 15 here in Providence has offered you immediate temporary housing. More importantly, the Rhode Island Department of Veterans Affairs has expedited your case for permanent supportive housing. Rodriguez looked overwhelmed. Your Honor, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything. But I want you to know something else. I have contacted the local news stations. They want to tell your story, not just what happened today, but what you did in Afghanistan. Anthony nodded enthusiastically. Anthony has agreed to be interviewed alongside you. It's time people knew what you did over there, Rodriguez. It's time you received the recognition you deserve. Rodriguez hesitated. I don't know about being on television. Judge Caprio put his hand on the veteran's shoulder. Son, you saved lives in a war zone without seeking recognition. Now, let us help save yours. Let your story inspire other veterans to seek help instead of suffering in silence. The emotional weight of the moment wasn't lost on anyone present. Here stood a judge who had gone far beyond his judicial responsibilities to assist a veteran in need, simply because that veteran had once saved his nephew's life. But Rodriguez wasn't the only person affected by this encounter. Anthony spoke up. Uncle Frank, I want to do something as well. My construction company has been searching for experienced workers. Rodriguez, if you're interested, I've got a full-time position ready for you. Good pay, benefits, and we value military experience. Rodriguez broke down completely at this offer. I've been searching for steady work for months. Tony, I can't believe this is happening. Judge Caprio watched this interaction with visible satisfaction. This is what happens when we support one another. This is what true community looks like. The judge then made one final announcement that would forever cement this moment in courtroom history. Mr. Rodriguez, I am also arranging for you to meet with Congressman Jim Langan's office. They specialize in helping veterans navigate the system and secure the benefits they have earned. No veteran should have to struggle alone the way you have. As court officers began locking up the building, the three men continued their conversation. Anthony and Rodriguez exchanged contact information and arranged to meet the following day to discuss the job opportunity. Judge Caprio pulled Rodriguez aside for a private word. Son, I want you to understand something. What happened here today isn't about luck or coincidence. It's about a community recognizing one of its heroes and stepping forward to help. You've carried these burdens alone for far too long. Rodriguez nodded, still emotional from the day's events. Your Honor, I came here expecting to go to jail. Instead, I've found hope again. That's what justice should look like, the judge replied. Not just punishment, but restoration. Not just consequences, but compassion. Comment below if you believe our veterans deserve better support, and hit subscribe to see more stories of justice and compassion changing lives. 3 months later, the transformation in Michael Rodriguez's life was remarkable. The temporary housing had been converted into permanent supportive housing through the VA. Anthony's construction job had provided him with steady income and renewed purpose. Most importantly, he had reconnected with fellow veterans in his community and was receiving proper care for his PTSD. Judge Caprio received updates consistently from both Rodriguez and his nephew. The story had indeed been covered by national news outlets, inspiring similar acts of compassion in courtrooms across the nation. But perhaps the most profound outcome was less visible. Rodriguez had started volunteering with local veteran organizations, assisting other former service members in navigating the challenges of civilian life. "I want to pay it forward," he told Judge Caprio during one of their follow-up conversations. "If sharing my story can help even one other veteran avoid sleeping in their car, then it's worth it." The judge smiled. "Son, you saved lives in Afghanistan, and now you're saving lives here at home. That is the mark of a true hero." Anthony added, "And Uncle Frank, what you did that day, recognizing Rodriguez and taking action, that saved a life too. That is the mark of a true public servant." The events of that October morning had become more than just a viral video or feel-good news story. They had become a model for how communities can support their veterans, how individual actions can create lasting change, and how sometimes the most important moments occur in the most unexpected places. Judge Caprio reflected on this months later. "In 30 years on the bench, I've seen thousands of cases, but occasionally you meet someone whose story reminds you why we do this work. Rodriguez reminded me that behind every case is a human being with a story. And sometimes that story contains heroism we never knew existed." The courtroom where it all unfolded now features a small plaque honoring all veterans who have appeared before the court. Judge Caprio insisted on this tribute, saying, "We never know when a hero might be standing right in front of us." Michael Rodriguez's story became a testament to the fact that heroes are not always recognized immediately, that sometimes they fall through the cracks of the very system they dedicate themselves to protect. But it also proved that when communities unite, when people in positions of authority use their influence for good, and when we support one another, extraordinary transformations are possible. Subscribe now and share this video if you believe every veteran deserves the recognition and support Michael Rodriguez received that day. Your engagement helps us continue sharing stories that truly matter. The final chapter of this story is still being written. Rodriguez continues to thrive in his new life. Anthony's family had essentially welcomed him as an extended family member. Judge Caprio continued to approach every case with the same compassion and careful attention that had created this extraordinary moment. Sometimes, justice isn't merely about enforcing the law. It's about recognizing the humanity in every person who stands before the bench and having the courage to act when you realize you are face to face with a hero. But there was one final surprise in this remarkable story. 6 months after that emotional courtroom encounter, Judge Caprio received a phone call that would bring the story full circle. The call came from the Pentagon. The Department of Defense had learned about Rodriguez's situation through media coverage and wanted to investigate why a Bronze Star recipient had slipped through the cracks of veteran support systems. Judge Caprio, the Pentagon official explained, "We've discovered that Sergeant Rodriguez's Bronze Star citation was never properly processed through our publicity channels. His heroic actions were documented in classified after-action reports, but the public recognition he deserved never occurred. The investigation revealed a bureaucratic failure affecting dozens of veterans from Rodriguez's unit. Their Valor Awards were correctly filed in military records but were never submitted to public affairs for proper recognition ceremonies. We want to make this right," the Pentagon official continued. "We are planning a formal ceremony at the Rhode Island State House, and we would like you to present Sergeant Rodriguez with his Bronze Star in front of the community that has supported him." Judge Caprio was deeply moved by this news. "That would be an honor," he said. "But you should know, this Marine doesn't seek recognition. He's humble to a fault. That is exactly why he deserves it, Your Honor," the official replied. When Judge Caprio shared the news with Rodriguez, the veteran hesitated. "Your Honor, I didn't do what I did for medals or ceremonies. I did it for my brothers." Anthony Caprio, who had become like family to Rodriguez, persuaded him to accept. "Man, you need to let people honor what you did, not for you, but for other veterans who need to see that their service matters." The ceremony at the Rhode Island State House drew hundreds of attendees. Veterans from multiple conflicts, community leaders, and members of Rodriguez's new extended family filled the historic building. Judge Caprio, wearing his judicial robes, stood alongside military officials as they formally honored the Marine who had saved 3 lives in Afghanistan. But the most profound moment arrived when Rodriguez was handed the microphone to speak to the audience. "I want to thank Judge Caprio for seeing me when I felt invisible," Rodriguez began, his voice steady yet full of emotion. "When I was sleeping in my car, I believed my service no longer mattered. I thought I had been forgotten. But this community, Anthony, Judge Caprio, all of you, you reminded me that no veteran fights alone." He paused, gazing directly at Judge Caprio. "Your Honor, you did more than dismiss my charges that day. You restored my sense of purpose. You showed me that my story was not over, it was merely beginning a new chapter." The standing ovation that followed continued for several minutes. Judge Caprio, visibly moved, later told reporters, "This is what happens when we refuse to give up on one another. Michael Rodriguez served our country with honor, and our country returned that service when he needed it most." The ripple effects of that October morning in Providence Municipal Court continued to grow. The story inspired legislation in Rhode Island mandating that all judges receive training on veteran issues. Other courts across the nation began establishing protocols to identify veterans in their systems and connect them with the resources they need. Rodriguez used his newfound platform to advocate for veteran mental health services. "If sharing my story can prevent even one veteran from reaching the point of sleeping in their car, then everything I endured was worth it," he said. Today, Rodriguez works not only for Anthony's construction company but also as a peer counselor at the VA, assisting other veterans in transitioning to civilian life. He and Anthony have become inseparable, embodying the Marine Corps motto that no one is left behind. Judge Caprio continues to reference that October morning as a reminder of why compassion is essential in the justice system. "We can never know the storms someone has faced before entering our courtroom. Our duty is not just to judge their actions, but to recognize their humanity." The empty chair where Rodriguez once sat in handcuffs now serves as a symbol in Judge Caprio's courtroom, a reminder that every individual who stands before the bench carries a story, and sometimes that story contains extraordinary courage and sacrifice, deserving acknowledgement rather than punishment.